Hello, hello, gorgeous ladies. I'm Fiona Keary from Style Liberation and founder of the Facebook group 35 Plus Where to Shop. And we help women 35 plus to create a wardrobe full of outfits that they love without having to start from scratch through our one-to-one consultations, our online program, The Style Transformation, our virtual services, plus our fabulous membership, The Super Stylers. Now, we do a regular segment called Life and Style, and that's what you're joining us for today. And I'm really excited about today's guest because I can really relate to today's topic. And Life and Style is about introducing our community to topics that matter to women 35 plus. And I know myself, I went through an early midlife crisis where the career I was in wasn't. I couldn't see myself doing it for the rest of my working life. And so I did take a bit of a leap and jump into a whole new career, which has led to me helping women create wardrobes full of outfits that they absolutely love. And we know from working with lots and lots of clients and within our community that many of you may have a side gig or thinking about having a side gig that you would love to turn into your main gig. So that's why I can't wait to introduce you to our fabulous guest, who is Shandra Moran. Now, Shandra is the founder of the Transit Lounge, a boutique coaching consultancy for women who've had a career but now want to start their own successful solo business. She's an award-winning promotions and marketing director, a professional results coach, internationally accredited money breakthrough coach, a podcast host and co-author of international best-selling book Elevate Your Success. And after an early midlife crisis, Shandra left the media industry to follow her passion for people development. And after training as a coach, she has held a senior management role within a learning and development company. So, following a diagnosis of severe adrenal fatigue in 2014, she reinvented her professional life once again when she left her successful career to create the Transit Lounge. Shandra is passionate about working with professional women who want to be their own boss, and I can highly recommend it. Highly, highly recommend it, so that they can earn great money, do work that they love without burning out. So let me introduce you to Shandra. And Shandra is actually one of our fabulous Style Transformation alumni, as well as one of our gorgeous Super Styler members. Hi, Shandra. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hello, beautiful Fiona. Thank you so much for having me on and for, allowing me to share my experience with all the goodness that I have enjoyed with the Style Liberation team.
Thank you so much. So before we dive in to the side gig discussion, what I know our community would love to know as well is a little bit about your style transformation and in particular your style profile. So can you
Mhm.
tell us a little bit about what your challenges were with your wardrobe prior to going through your own style transformation?
Yeah, it's so funny when I think back. I remember sitting around a table with some girlfriends. We had a lunch catch up and we were all talking about how we just wished that someone could just magically every season just deliver us a wardrobe of outfits for the season that suited us and fitted and everything perfectly. And literally, it was not long after that I found you and the Style Liberation team. And I think the reason why I was talking about whinging about my wardrobe with my girlfriends at that time was that I just felt like I had never really found my style. Like I actually was jealous of my husband who has a particular build. And so he had brands that he knew he could go to and he'd just get fab things and they'd fit him really well. And I'd be like, I was so angry. And then I'd try and I'd find things and I'd think, oh, I love that color. But then I don't know, there was something about it that wasn't quite right. So I think my biggest challenge before was feeling like I just hadn't found my style and that I wanted it to be something simpler than it was, than, my getting ready processes, would take an extraordinary amount of time and however many outfits I kept trying on. And then Mick would go, oh, so you went back to the first thing or whatever. So I think I had a lot of frustration simply because I didn't have a clarity around my style. I didn't have a strategy around it. I'm not someone who loves shopping, to be honest. When the only shopping experiences I did used to love was going, and I would go in and I'd go, bring me outfits. So I didn't want to just go and buy a thing, because if I had to put the thing together, I just knew it would never work. So it was a bit of a road, like, what do you call it? A bit of a train wreck.
So can you share what your style profile is, your style personality, your color palette, and if you're happy to share your body architecture as well?
Yes. So I am a creative, rebellious, with equal dashes of dramatic and classic. So I'm like a cocktail of crazy, really, which actually made a lot of sense when I was going through and doing that. So that's my style personality. My color palette is, I'm a warm clear. And so I did have to have a bit of that shock therapy of breaking up with black.
And the 18 months free counselling.
Yes, exactly. But on the upside, a friend of mine literally got 1.5 bags full of all my black stuff. So it went to a very happy person with a dark palette. My body architecture is, I am a triangle, but I'm also short-legged.
Fantastic. So what's changed for you now? How do you feel about your wardrobe and putting together outfits now?
So it's a lot more fun, definitely, because I feel excited about the options that I've got in my wardrobe. I don't necessarily feel like I've got a lot more clothes necessarily, but I feel like more of them go with each other more easily. So it's easier for me to go, if I've decided that I'm going to wear that top, then I know, that jacket will go with it, or whatever. And I find, like, literally as it started to get cooler here in Sydney, I realized I was feeling excited about being able to tap back into some of the warmer layers that I bought last season. And so being excited about having the opportunity to wear the things that I've got is definitely just a whole more positive experience, I think, with how I think and feel about my wardrobe and what's available to me. And then the confidence that I've got of putting outfits together and to feel like they're more me.
I love that. And I love that you say getting excited, because often when we hit a new season, a lot of people look outward to the shop straight away thinking that they don't have, or they're like, oh, there's nothing that I really want to wear. But when you have that feeling that you can go back to your wardrobe and go, oh, I'm looking forward. Like, it's like, oh, my friend, I get to hang out with you again.
Exactly. I have got a drawer full of winter friends who I'm catching up with now.
That's what we're going to call it from now on, winter friends or summer friends. We get to get reacquainted with them.
Yes, they've been away and they're back and we get to hang out again.
That's what we're going to call it from now on. Thank you. So, Shandra, I know myself, early 30s, had an early midlife crisis, and was like, it was that Monday-itis, which actually started on a Sunday afternoon, evening, where I'd feel sick in the pit of my stomach thinking, oh my word, I've got to get back into this week in doing work that really didn't fill me with much joy. I could do it. I absolutely could do it. Still love a spreadsheet. However, it wasn't that thing where I got up excited every morning to do. So tell me a little bit about how you help women, and where you find people usually start when they start thinking about that side gig or hustle.
Yeah, and look, literally everything that you just described is very reminiscent of my own experience, and I've done it a couple of times. When I used to work in radio, and I got to a point where I was, in many respects, pretty successful in professionally in what I was doing and the role that I had and everything that came with that. But I just had this sense of, is this it? And like, I just was surprised that, yes, I could do it, but it just wasn't making me happy. And so that was my first midlife crisis. And so I left that, and that's when I trained as a coach. And then I was working with a learning and development company, and I loved it for a while. And then it went a bit south. And as you said, I could do it, and I had lots of elements that, in theory were successful, but it was not serving me, and it was making me sick, quite literally, with burnout. And so I think for a lot of women that perhaps like I was back then, 7, 8 years ago, of feeling like, oh crap, I thought this was going to be the thing forever professionally, and if it's not it, then what is, and what do I do next? And I allowed myself just little germs of an idea of, okay, well, when I'm ready, I'm going to go and I'm going to do this thing as my own business. But it took quite a long time for me to get to that point of being really ready to pull the ripcord. And in fact, it took the diagnosis of being really sick to make me go, okay, time out, maybe I really need to do this. So I think for many women that I connect with, they're, often in that stage of, they've had a great career, they've been very good at what they do, and they just, exactly like you said, can't see themselves being happy doing that in the next chapter of their work life. And so they've got an idea, and perhaps for some of them, they have started a side gig where they're dabbling a little bit to see, can I really do this? Does it have legs to really be a business that can, provide the sort of income that I want for my lifestyle? And that they've made some starts, but they're at a point where they're not sure how to scale it to get it to be big enough to be their main thing. Or they can see that it's what they want to be doing, and they've made a start, but now it's about the personal confidence and leap of faith of letting go of that identity, that attachment to, and maybe a false sense of security of having this secure job, to actually say to themselves and to others in their lives that this is what I want. I want to work for myself. I want to create my own thing. I want to call my own shots about when I work, where I work, who I work with. And that is a real confidence challenge, I think, that most women will face before they get to that point of going, okay, I've got a plan, and I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to, take this step and make this leap.
I can really understand that confidence thing. I know for the first few years, like someone would ask me, especially someone I had known through my previous career, and then ask me, oh, what are you doing now? And I'd sort of like, blah, 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 like mumble, or just like, because to go from, a corporate accounting, finance role to go to image consulting, people just sort of go, oh. So it's sort of having that confidence to own that what's going to work for you, what makes you happy, how you want to build something. Yeah, I can totally understand that confidence thing.
Yeah, and look, it's so interesting that you say that about observing how you responded in those situations. And I think I was very similar in the early days. I felt like I was still finding my feet, which #that's normal. But we judge ourselves so harshly, especially if we've been someone that's been quite successful in a career. There is that attachment to the identity of that role title or the income level or any of the other golden handcuffs, as I call it, that keep you stuck in a job that's not serving you anymore. And we can assume that when we make this transition into doing our own thing, that we should be replacing that income straight away. And if we're not, we're a failure. And I did a podcast series a couple of years ago where I interviewed 40 women who'd made the change from a career to start their own business after 40. And one of the interviews I did was with a fabulous woman called Belinda. And she used to be a vet. And then she got to a point where she it wasn't working for her. She had young kids and the hours were ridiculous and all of that. And so she started her own supplement line for triathletes, because she was a triathlete herself and she couldn't find anything that didn't have a whole lot of, chemicals and stuff in it. And she started that. And in our conversation, she shared an observation where to train and learn how to be a highly skilled, highly successful, well-paid vet, was 7-8 years. Why is it that we can then start a business, either in a new field altogether, like you did, or a version of the same subject matter that we've done as our career, but we instantly think that we should know how to do it either instantly, just, I don't know, Vulcan mind meld and just know how to do it, or that within the first 6 to 12 months, if you've got to be nailing this, otherwise, it's a failure. You may as well go back to being a vet. And I remember her talking in that way and how for most careers, it's like, well, do you have to get some sort of training or accreditation? Generally, they take time. They take financial investment. They take energy and sacrifice that you're focusing on that instead of doing this other thing. But when we start our own business, we are so hard on ourselves. We don't give ourselves the grace of acknowledging that it is worth the time and the investment, and it's appropriate that it takes time to learn the skill. So it's like you've got to think that your first 3 years are like your apprenticeship, and that's how we should be thinking about it, and not judging ourselves by the standard that we reached after however many years, but instead by the fact that we are creating a new foundation. There's lots more I could say about that, but I'm aware that I'm rabbiting on now.
You're not. And honestly, I wish someone had said that to me a decade ago, because it's so true.
I didn't know you that well.
I just want to touch on, that whole confidence thing as well, and sort of owning that new path. And, there's often a little bit of imposter syndrome about, well, there's so many, personal trainers out there. There's so many, milliners out there. There's so many, variations of where I'm planning on going out there. How do I get out there and differentiate myself, or, that type of thing?
Yeah.
Maybe I should just go back and do what I was doing.
Yeah. And look, I think on the most part that when we come up against that, so if anyone's watching or listening and that is a little inner voice message, know that you're not alone. Most of us have that voice, and most of the time mine is an absolute cow. In fact, I gave her a name, Sister Paula. That's a whole other story.
I can't wait to hear that story.
Very judgy. That when we have that, it's often it's a procrastination and a protection strategy to keep us safe and small. But the reality is that you are probably someone who has got more to give and knows that there's more that you could be doing and enjoying in your life. And so you want to see that as what it is, which is just like a little test from the universe. Well, how much do you want this? And the best way that I can counter that, and in fact, I've had this conversation recently with a couple of clients about that whole thing. There's so many people out there already doing what I want to do. How will I stand out? Will I actually be able to make it work and make it successful? And the comparison that I use is peanut butter. And the reason for that is because a little while ago, I was at the supermarket and I was wanting to get some peanut butter, and I hadn't bought any for a while because, to be honest, it wasn't really my thing, but, so jars would last a long time. I went to the peanut butter aisle and I could not believe how many, not just different brands of peanut butter there are now, but types of, so when I grew up, it was like Kraft, and you had crunchy or smooth. That was kind of pretty much it. Now there are so many different peanut butter brands, and then within the brands, there are so many different types. There is still smooth and there is still crunchy, but there's also one that I did buy, which was called a protein spread. So it's got the peanuts, but it's also got pepitas and all these other seeds to increase the amount of protein that was in it, which ironically was why I was looking to buy peanut butter, because of a health issue. Anyway, so there's those ones. There was ones with hemp seed, but then I saw the difference. There was standard and then dry roasted. So a darker roasted peanut that then is blended. And I was like, ooh, that could be tasty. And then I saw they also had this new one, which is called schmunchy.
I need to try this.
You have to, because it's got all the goodness of smooth peanut butter, but with some crunchy in it as well. And so smunchy is a whole new option. And my point about peanut butter and business is, out of the peanut butter aisle, I was like totally overwhelmed. But then I saw this dark roasted smunchy thing, and I'm like, I'm curious about that. I'm reading the label and whatever. I had at that point probably been in the aisle quite a long time. And a lady had come along and she was trying to choose her thing and whatever. She looked over, saw that I was looking at the dark roasted Maver's schmunchy, and she had said to me, "Do yourself a favor. It's awesome." And I was like, "Really?" And she said, "Yep." And then she walked away and I never saw her again. But I am a dark roasted schmunchy Maver's fan now.
You know, you're going to have to put a link in the comments of that.
I am going to have to show you the peanut butter. But my point is that if you're someone, and okay, maybe there are lots of other personal trainers or accountants or home organizers or whatever you're looking at doing and putting out in the world, the reality is the more that you can embrace your own unique backstory and experience and unique personality, so much like the combination of the style personality that you help women to identify, the more that women can embrace that, the more likely they are to be able to differentiate themselves from others in the market that maybe offer something similar, and the more likely they are to really attract the kind of people that are the right clients for them, that are going to really appreciate and enjoy the way that you do what it is that you do. Because, we've all been in situations where you're trying to choose between providers and you go, I don't know what it was, but there's something about these people that I prefer. And that all comes down to, part of your brand essence, your brand personality. And that lives or dies by how willing you are to share who you are and to create something that is unique to you based on either your approach to what it is that you do or your history of what you've done before that you can draw on, or that provides you with a unique understanding of either the types of clients that you work with or the problem that you help them overcome. So whenever you are thinking about, oh God, there's so many insert profession here out there, think of peanut butter.
That is it. I'm seriously going to just think of peanut butter. I actually feel like a little bit of peanut butter right now. So you touched on, in terms of, the identity that we often have with our role, and then moving across, and that, confidence that we have to move across and do something different. And you've touched as well on, I guess, confidence around owning your space and being your own particular flavor of insert profession here.
Yeah.
And I guess you did just touch as well in the beginning. I'd like to dive in a little bit further around this whole thing that, we're expected to be maybe an expert in our new business straight away. But I know that before we were sort of talking about how we need to be open to, I guess, a process in such a way, or, a little bit of a journey. Can you talk a little bit more about that and, setting expectations around that?
Yeah, I think, and again, when I reflect back on my process and my experience, there's a lot of this that I can see many similarities with the clients that I work with, either privately or as part of my group that I have, where I think there is that high expectation of wanting to get it right. And I'm like 7, nearly 8 years into this business, and I still can see things where I'm like, oh, why have I not nailed that yet? Or that thing I'm still challenged by, or whatever it is. And I think there is that element that we just are so hard on ourselves. But if we can step back, and this is where I think one of the things that's really important is, when you're considering the choice of starting your own business and making that for your next chapter, that instead of feeling like I've got to make the one right choice that is available to me. And I guess this links that, sometimes we can be told that, you've got one true purpose or one true something. And I think that rather than that being, inspiring and motivating, it can actually be a real handbrake, because people think, well, crap, do I actually know, is this the thing? And if I'm not really sure, then I better not do anything, because I don't want to make a mistake. And I think women particularly do this, especially when they're kind of older, and at a point where they're feeling like, well, I'm supposed to kind of have all my shit together, right? I should have asked you about whether I'm allowed to swear. Sorry.
Totally can swear.
Okay. But it's that thing of like pressure of I've got to get this one thing right, because if I don't, it's like fire and brimstone or certain death, right? Whereas I think the antidote to that is for you first to be thinking, okay, I've had a great career, I've learned a lot, and I feel confident in what I'm doing, but I'm being called in a different direction, and I want this for my next chapter at some point. Is instead of going, I've got to know exactly everything that's right for this next little piece, that instead to look longer term, when you're tossing around ideas of what you think you want to do, be in the ballpark of something that you can imagine yourself doing and being passionate about over a reasonably long term. Because I think what that does is helps us to get past the short-term restrictions of what we might tell ourselves is possible, or what we've got time for, or whatever other, expectations we put on ourselves. But if we kind of go, okay, long term, I want to head this direction. And then you can go, well, my first move that's in that vague direction is going to be this. And that's where it might be that you go, okay, I think I want to be a personal trainer or a yoga instructor or a home organizer, whatever it might be, or a project manager for residential renovations, like one of my clients is. And so you make a start, and you make a start with going, here's what I think I'm being and offering, and you have a go with that, and know that your first iteration of what you're going to market with is probably not going to be the same in another year, 3 years, 5 years. And that's okay. In fact, it's a good thing that you want to be able to take steps, learn from that, iterate, tweak, and make the next step. I've got so many examples of clients that I've worked with who were totally convinced, I want to do this, and I want to do group workshops. I don't want to do private clients. I just want to do group workshops because I know that's scalable and more fun and whatever else. It's like, okay, great. And so they've started going down that path, and they've hit a few hurdles, and they've, one example was someone who had to do, for an accreditation, she had to do some private client work. And through that process, she actually realized how much she really enjoyed that. And that she decided, well, maybe the group thing can wait. I'm going to do a bit of this, private one-on-one clients first. And for other people, it might be the other way around, that they think, oh, I'm not brave enough or experienced enough to do group stuff. I'm just going to stay doing my private clients or one clients. But they have an experience with the group and go, oh, actually, I really quite like this. So it's about, I think, being clear enough about what your first steps are going to be, and be open to what you'll learn as feedback through that. And you'll get feedback from the market about what the market responds to, what they see value in, what they appreciate, what they don't, and feedback from yourself about, what am I enjoying through this process? What's not what I thought it would be? What would I do again? What would I do differently? And refine and tweak, knowing that we have that inner voice of going, oh, it was a disaster, like, whatever the expectations were that weren't met, and to feel embarrassed by that. And I certainly have had many, examples, particularly early in my business, where I have this whole big vision of what I wanted to promote and sell, and putting all the work in and putting it out there, and crickets, no one bought. And what's really the test is what you make that mean. And of course you want to be able to maybe lick your wounds a little bit, but if you can look at it and go, well, actually long term, I want to be doing this, so I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to tweak. What did I not do well? What did I go do well? And to know that iteration is part of the process, and to not be so hard on ourselves of thinking it's got to be perfect before we make a start, or God forbid, something doesn't go to plan and you feel like you're supposed to run away and hide, because no one else is looking as closely at your business and what you're doing as you are looking at it. And so build a bridge, pick it up, get on with it, and keep moving.
But it really does relate back to that whole idea that it's almost like, so instead of, doing courses or going to uni or all those other things to learn how to do something, we're learning as we go. We're learning on the job
Yeah.
and, practicing our skills. It's just a little bit more public.
Yes, it feels a bit more public, doesn't it? And
Yeah.
I think that element too of I'm a big one for have a plan and don't do something that's really crazy or going to jeopardize your livelihood or be damaging to from a personal brand perspective. But don't wait so long. And this is a big mistake that I made, and it's probably why I'm so on my soapbox about it now with clients and people in my community, is don't wait so long to try and think, oh, I've built everything all perfect and now I'm going to take it and go da-da to the market and then see what happens, because most often we've waited way too long or we've gone way too far down a path that isn't a match for what the market wants. I am a big one for the sooner you can start talking to people about potentially being a client or buying from you, the better, because you learn through that. And so that road, in fact, I did a Facebook Live on this yesterday about, what's between where you are now and you making money, and focus intently on those tasks, those actions, rather than being distracted by other things, because that process is either going to make you money, get you a client, whatever, or you'll build stuff and create stuff, processes and things you can reuse, and you'll learn so much through the process. So there's no downside. So I'm a big one for having a bias to action with appropriate planning and support in place.
Love it. Shandra, thank you so much. So what would be so someone who's got a side gig at the moment or thinking about it,
Yep.
what would be your top 3 sort of tips for them to sort of get into that momentum?
Oh, God, top 3. Okay.
Sorry, I know I've put you on the spot a little bit with that one.
I'm just like a Gemini, and I'm lucky you give me 3, not 1. So I would say if you've got the side gig already up and started, then it becomes looking at the decision. Do you want this side gig, this passion business, whatever it is that you call it? Some of my clients just call it, that's my future. They don't call it a side gig, they call it, that's my future. Whatever that is for you, if you do want this to be your future main focus, then make a commitment to yourself. And I'm a big one for, if you have not said it out loud to any other living soul yet, then do that. And if you have done it, recommit to it, of going, this is what I actually want. Because I think there's something disproportionately beneficial in that absolute commitment. This is what I want. I don't have all the answers yet, but I know I'm smart and I can find out and I can learn anything. That commitment is definitely the first piece. Second thing is to don't try and do it on your own. That was another mistake that I made in my early days. And I think it was because I felt like I should know how to do it, which is, with hindsight, really unfair on myself to have that expectation, but that's where I was. So don't hide what it is that you want, and don't try to think that you have to figure it all out on your own. Find your tribe of business buddies, or a community that you really resonate with, because most of us, when we've had a career, don't have a lot of people in our network that are in business. For me, certainly, most of my family and friends, they're employed, and I love them and they love me, but they don't have the same understanding of what it's like to be building a business and growing a business. So everybody's got to have, I think, their people, and that could be a coach that you work with privately. It could be a group program. It could be a community, a network. Find some posse that you can talk to and get support from is definitely something that I would encourage. And the third thing, there's so many, Fiona. The third thing would be the big mistake that I made, and I think I still keep kicking my own butt about, is don't be too broad. And narrow your niche. And if you think that you can't narrow your niche, I'd just challenge yourself to think about it, because being too broad makes everything harder. even though, and it seems counterintuitive that you think, okay, well, the broader my audience are of who I can help, the more customers I will get. The reality is that very rarely is the truth. Things are more expensive if you're trying to have too many different target markets. Your message is unlikely to cut through, and you're going to exhaust yourself trying to come up with the easiest way to try and serve a big audience. So I would prefer and rather that people start narrow and broaden out on either the back end or broaden out once they've got that first piece up and running. Even though it feels scary to niche, I would super, super, super encourage people to do that.
Brilliant, brilliant advice, Shandra. Love it so much. So I'm just going to share, because Shandra is going to share with this. This is like world exclusive, isn't it?
It is actually a global exclusive.
Right, let me see if my tech works. There we go. So Shandra has a brand new, and again, this is exclusive, like launch here of the Side Gig Success Guide. And I'm actually just going to pop it in the comments as well, the link. I'll just pop that in there so everyone's got that, where you can grab it. But yeah, it's a free guide that you can sign up to. Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, so I created this because I just kept getting feedback when I was doing research with, I guess my ideal client audience, which you always have to do and continue to do. And I just kept coming across this theme of women who had a side gig, and that what was holding them back from taking it full time was around a lack of confidence. And that confidence, might have been confidence about whether their idea was scalable enough. It might have been confidence about their own ability to run a business, but confidence just seemed to be this piece that was holding women back. And because I'm so passionate about helping women to actually make this move and to be doing work that they love, I thought, right, I'm going to put a resource together that I can put out there. So it's got 5 tools basically for you to focus on to help build your confidence so that you can see, hey, maybe I can take this full time when I'm ready. So that's the purpose of this guide, is to just give a bit of it's a guide workbook really, with some questions in each of the sections to help you reflect on your own unique situation, so you know what to be focusing on to go, right, that's my confidence base.
Thank you so, so much for sharing that with us
Oh,
as
you're
well.
welcome.
Very excited. I'm even going to dive in and take a look at, because it's one of those ever evolving things in business as well.
Yeah.
Shandra, thank you so, so much for joining us today and sharing
My
with us. Oh yeah, you've got your fabulously fun earrings. That's a little bit of creative and dramatic coming out there.
Right.
So thank you so much. And I've put the link to Shandra's Side Gig Success Guide there in the comments, and I'll also make sure that we share that around for you as well. Thank you so much for sharing your time today with us and with my community. Really, really appreciate it. Take care.
Loved it. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.